If you've ever struggled with fear, doubt, or worry, and wondering what your true purpose was all about, then this podcast is for you. In this show, your host, Sylvia Worsham, will interview elite experts and ordinary people that have created extraordinary lives. So here's your host, Sylvia Worsham.
Well, first off, I want to say who I am. I'm Sylvia Worsham, and welcome to the podcast, Release Doubt, Reveal Purpose. And it's really a journey. It's a spiritual journey of transformation for my light bringers. And who these light bringers are women, professional women, corporate women, who from the time they were born had this light inside of them, these spiritual gifts. And as they start journeying through life, they have their first significant emotional event. And unfortunately, what happens is they lose that light and that soul direction, if you will. And now fear kind of starts taking center stage in who they are and who they become. So this podcast is truly for women that want to release doubt and gain freedom from their fear-based belief systems that right now are calling the shots in their life. And it's for women that not only want to have the freedom of fear, they want to step into joy fully, where joy now becomes their compass. They are truly enjoying and able to receive blessings in their life. And more importantly, they are getting into a space where they are going to turn inward for their answers instead of outward, and where they stay curious about life and joyful and authentic to themselves. But more importantly, where they start to listen to the promptings of their soul and promptings of God and step into that soul's purpose that they've wanted to step into for a long time, but perhaps they've been afraid to because they grew up in a perfectionist, high achieving home, perhaps. Someone like me who was modeled from the age of 7 that in order to be successful and to feel successful, I needed to achieve, and I needed to achieve perfectly. So I fall into this ego trap of corporate America, which is ideal breeding ground for this type of personality, type A's. And I step into it and I become a high performer for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. And I do this multiple years in a row, but I realize when I'm standing on stage as I'm accepting the #1 award in the country for the sales I had just done, that I wasn't happy. I was simply surviving. And because I didn't feel enough, I was driving myself to work 50 to 60-hour work weeks and totally exhausted. I had just gotten a divorce, and I now was stepping into this role with a little boy to raise. And I wasn't thriving. I was simply surviving. And so this journey in this podcast is to help you move through those fear-based beliefs and step into joy where you're going to receive it. Because as I'm on stage, I don't feel like I've earned the right to be joyful. That's crazy to think that, but it's a generational belief that got taken down, generation to generation, that a woman could not have it all. She had to sacrifice something. So I couldn't even accept the joys on stage, like #1 and all the accolades that it comes with. I couldn't even accept it with a joyful disposition. I beat myself up because I hadn't been there for my boy in my mind. And now it's a different space for me as I've journeyed through my fear and stepped into joy and actually have developed a very solid relationship with myself and with my higher source of power, which in my case is God. But for others, it could be the universe, it could be energy. And I listen to the promptings and I step fully in there. How do you gain that balance in having that joy and receiving that joy and what success is? And success is very different for everyone. For my immigrant parents, it was You needed to achieve in order to be successful and to lead a quote unquote happy life. And I think most people fall into that trap because that's what they were taught. So how do you gain that balance is you need to journey and identify what those fear-based beliefs are and shift them. Because when you carry that inside of you, unfortunately, you project it continuously, subconsciously into your world. And the more you project it, the more you attract that. So you won't gain that balance and that authenticity until you journey through your fear, uproot these belief systems of not enoughness, of needing to achieve perfectly in order to be successful, and shifting it to where I am enough. I am successful. I am blessed. I am loved. Whatever it is that's holding you back from having that balance in your life and being truly true to yourself. Because in this podcast, we're going to dive into this space that is really an interesting space when you journey into joy, because a lot of people don't know what joy feels like because forever they've been guided by this fear. Fear has been calling the shots for a long time in their life. And when they finally rid themselves of the high that fear gives them, that energy that it gives them, and now they're left into that authentic space, this is the space where you can start having fun and getting to know yourself again and getting to know your true soul identity. Who are you truly at your core without the fear holding you back, without the fear calling the shots? And that's where we can start talking about taking yourself out on artist dates, like Julia Cameron talks about in her book, and finding out what is it that brings me joy. What are my spiritual gifts? Because you're all born with spiritual gifts. And when you start doing the spiritual gift on purpose, which in my case was writing and speaking, then you start to really step into that identity. You need to create the identity of a joyful person, of a person that knows how to receive joy, knows how to be led by her soul's promptings, and step into it easily and flowing easily. But to do that, you need to journey through your fear first and gain freedom from it. And then you can start to really step into what is successful for you. Because right now, you don't know what that is. Because when you're little, you are courageous and fearless, just like the Proverbs 31 woman. But when you have your first significant emotional event and you have your first taste of fear, that's when you start to really engage with fear more, and you stop being that light bringer. You stop being courageous. You stop being joyful and knowing how to receive joy and being curious and having that sense of wonder as a kid. It happened to me at the age of 7. I had my first significant emotional event, and I carried this belief system for 40 years. And I didn't even know it. I became aware of it when I became a coach and understood how the two minds work with each other, or in some cases against each other, to really bring you into a space where now your ego, being your self-image, you've shifted all that fear-based belief into an affirmative space. Your ego and your soul and your spirit are one. That's balance. That's success. Truly think about it. You go back to just observing your family and your family dynamics, and I guarantee you're going to figure it out, because mine came from generation, from our mothers, from our grandmothers, from great grandmothers. It gets passed on. Now, I come from a traditional Mexican household. So technically, in that role, in that culture, women are supposed to be home. They're not supposed to be these top career women who are number one in the country for the number one company in the world, making 6 figures. And if they're not home playing with their kids 50, 60 hours a week, you're not enough. That's where that comes from. And so when you start to dive into the why, like why you're feeling what you're feeling, like when you start to understand the power of the fear and how it has driven you for so long in your life, and you start to observe, like quietly observe your surroundings and how you speak and how you talk to yourself and what you think and how your family thinks. And it doesn't take rocket science. It just takes the ability of your eyes and the ability of your ears to just get quiet and observe for a day and take notes. And you'll be surprised, the answers come from within. Your answers are inside of you. You already know what they are. But what is happening is that these beliefs are so strong in you because from itty bitty, ever since you were a little kid, you have been programming your mind, your subconscious mind, to think in a certain way. And so it really takes interrupting that thought pattern and identifying that belief that is the driver of that feeling inside of you of, I'm not enough unless, I'm not successful, I cannot have it all, because there is a belief at the root that once you identify and you shift, it's gone forever. Tell me how you got here. Tell me your story. Tell me your journey. Because I cannot understand how to help you, how to guide you and help you navigate this journey towards your divine soul's purpose until I understand what happened to you. So to help a woman who's been through a divorce, which is a significant emotional event, in some cases, it would be considered trauma because some people, didn't have great marriages, and who knows how it ended, and who knows if they're mothers and they do carry that guilt, because as women, we are others focused. And when we are others focused, we are highly distracted by how others are receiving their environment. I know I was, like, when I was going through that divorce, I was very concerned about how my son was taking the divorce. And I would beat myself up about, my actions or inaction. So I would also tell this woman, you're not alone in feeling how you're feeling. And it's a beautiful first step to come and ask for help, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't ask for help. They stay in their box where they can control their circumstances, because when we go through major events, the first thing we want and the first thing we lack is security. And when we lose that security, we fight to gain control of this security in any which way. So the fact that she even came and said, hey, I need help, that is a big first step. And I would empower her to start talking to herself in this way, because it will be okay, but it does take that first step, courageous first step. And it takes rolling up your sleeves and saying, I want to understand how I got here and how I can shift and pivot and listen to my soul's promptings and step into that space that I know I'm going to light up. I'm going to be able to bring more light to this world. I'm going to be able to address humanity's ailments, if you will, with my spiritual gifts. That's what I would tell her. Good first step. And thank you for asking for help. And please tell me how I can help you. I think most of us do. And I think the imposter syndrome also is a best friend of the comparison trap, because we are all gifted in our own separate ways. And from the time we're little kids, we have these spiritual gifts that we carry inside of us. Our culture isn't set up to engage with those gifts, if you will. Our culture is telling us constantly that we need certainty, we need security, we need this. It's all very fear-based. So it's something that does occur, and people don't want to fake it till they make it. They feel a lack of integrity when they do that. So I think they get stuck there in imposter syndrome a great deal of the time. But the first step into understanding why you're feeling what you're feeling is to dive deeply into your fear and to start to address what belief system is at the core of imposter syndrome. Why do you feel like you are not enough? Why do you feel you need to do things a certain way? It is, and it's also a lack of engaging with spirit because, in my case, the more I talk to God, the more I find my identity in Him, and nothing's impossible for Him. Nothing. And if I believe myself to be a child of His, then I have the code to success already inside of me. It's a lack of belief in yourself and a lack of connection to your higher source of power, to that inner voice that is longing to guide you out of the imposter syndrome and into your light. I'd be happy to talk about that moment where my life shifted forever. I had been single for 3 years and started dating. We had been dating for about 4 months, and he said he wanted his family to meet my boy. And of course, being a single mom, that's going to be a no-brainer. He's intending to marry me, so nothing could stop me from getting on that flight. And I'm living in South Texas at the time. He's living here in Austin, and we were meeting in Houston, Texas. And I take a flight despite having pain every time I take a breath. We arrive in Houston with my little boy, and I can barely get off the plane. I look deathly. We spend the night. At 3 a.m., I get jolted out of bed. 50 knives felt like they were piercing my chest every time I took a shallow breath. In the darkness and in so much fear, I hear a prompting that says, lean forward and you'll be able to breathe. And so I pay attention to it. I lean forward and I'm able to take deeper breaths. And I do this for the next 4 hours. And the next day I call my brother, who's a doctor. And when he finds that I've been on a flight, he says, go to the hospital immediately and get a scan of your lungs. And I get to St. Luke's Episcopal Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the country. I walk in, and within an hour, I get a specialist in my ER room saying, a woman in your condition should not be sitting up talking to me. You have 2 large pulmonary embolisms in your left lung. And for them to have gotten there, they went through your heart last night. I am shocked you did not die. They're large. And you have an inflamed liver. So you're not leaving here for the next couple of days. And so my boyfriend's outside with my little boy, typical mom. We get up, and despite the excruciating pain, we make arrangements. He leaves the next day. Now, mind you, this is Easter weekend. So this is a really prominent weekend for Christianity, for Catholics. And I get 6 doctors in my room. They're not making eye contact. I've been in sales for a long time. I can tell right away it's very bad news. And they say, we have a real problem. You have a massive blood clot that is putting pressure on the main vein that takes blood out of your organs, and it's putting pressure on your liver, and you're about to lose your liver and go into acute liver failure and require a transplant. Unbeknownst to me, my whole family are doctors. They were all told I had a 20% chance of surviving the night. So my own doctors are not confident I am going to survive. And in a moment of facing pulmonary embolisms, acute liver failure, death, and hemorrhagic stroke, which were all things that they had explained could happen to me overnight, I fully surrendered to God. For someone like me who always was in control of her circumstances or needed to be in control, that was a very big step forward, because that meant that I wasn't just believing in God now. I was trusting him to take the reins of my life. It was terrifying to lose, to like completely surrender, but I didn't, and I accepted his will. But I begged for my life. I asked for a second chance because I had just found the love of my life, my little boy, and I finally were going to get the chance of a lifetime to start over again. And I was in a really good place in my career. And I wanted to live. And so the next morning, a woman comes in and asks to pray with me. And so my boyfriend's in the room with me, and we form a circle. And we start reciting the Lord's Prayer. And in the midst of that, a love so immense filled the room. And I felt cradled by God, and a knowing washed over me, and a peace completely. And I knew I was okay because he told me I was okay. I didn't need doctors to confirm it. That was the second miracle I received. And the third and final one was when they wheeled me in to see if the therapy they had used to try to fight this thing that was killing me. Within 10 minutes, a doctor comes out. I have never seen a doctor who looks so radiant. And he said, there is no evidence of disease anywhere in your body, and you should have scarring and holes in your lungs, and there's nothing. So when you have 3 miracles in 72 hours, your life changes forever. And I began a quest to understand what my divine soul's purpose was, because he had come through for me. I had prayed, I surrendered, and I trusted, and he came through for me. Nothing was impossible for God. Nothing. While humanity may say this is impossible, for him, everything is possible. And from that moment on, my relationship with myself, with others, and with God changed forever. I dove like a crazy woman to understand why I had survived when others died. I took personal development courses. I became a coach in 2017 with the John Maxwell team. And soon after that, I became an author. And I'm here today as a podcast host because I have listened to that inner voice that first told me to lean forward and you'll be able to breathe, that first miracle. And since then, I've never been the same. The shortcut to joy is really to embrace your inner voice, your inner wisdom. Nothing outside of yourself is going to give you that level of happiness and fulfillment you seek. No level of achievement will do that for you. Another person won't do that for you. Your relationship with yourself and your higher source of power is going to give you what you're seeking. And in my case, it's God. So the more I find myself in him, the more I will attract abundance and love and all the things that surround him that are so powerful, so joyful, because he doesn't exist in fear. That's my mind. That's my programming doing that. That's how you know, the difference between the two. And the shortcut to joy is to truly surrender to who you were created to be. Go after that. Seek that out. That's the shortcut to joy and to fulfillment, is to step into who you were created to be and to really live it out on purpose. You trust. And see, that's the difference between belief and trust. When you fall back into somebody's arms, you're trusting that they're going to catch you. If you don't ever fall, how are you going to ever find out? If you don't ever take that step into a path, you don't know. There is no certainty. The certainty is something that humanity has created to feel in control of their circumstances. It's an illusion of the mind, of the ego, that is driven by fear. if you want to step into this journey fully, you've got to trust that everything is happening in your favor. I had this conversation with this kid on the way from Harlingen to Houston the other day, and you just have got to step in to that space with confidence and a knowing. It's not a failure if you learn something from it. Because he's like, well, I'm going to fail if I don't know where I'm going. Well, but did you learn something? Because we all learn in our journeys. We learn lessons that equip us for what's coming next, and only he knows what's coming next. We don't. But the more we stay still, the more we take that noise outside of our head, because here's the problem with fear is it's very noisy. It clouds you, it covers you up. It covers up all your joy, all your peace, all the things that you're longing for. It will control it if you let it. That is a choice you're making. You are making a choice daily to let fear call the shots. But the day that you say, it stops with me, it ends with me, I'm going to interrupt those patterns of thought, patterns of behavior, and I'm going to start doing something differently. And I'm going to trust that I am journeying in the path that I'm meant to journey in. And here's the thing, and here's a big tip for those that really want this life. You gotta get above the noise of the outside world to do that. And there's a lot of noise. It matters who you surround yourself with. It matters what thoughts you engage with. It matters what feelings you allow to get you triggered. You have a choice every day to interrupt and to create new habits and to create new thought patterns and to create a new life for yourself. But it is a choice. Joy is always a choice. Who you become is a choice that you make. And every choice has a natural consequence to it. As we know, and this is something we teach our little kids. And our Heavenly Father is someone who sometimes allows these things to happen because he's been trying to talk to you, and your ego and your fear are taking over. And he's not someone that's going to impose his will on you. He's going to have you ask him first for help. I had to surrender. I had to do the trusting first. He wasn't going to impose himself on me. Just like your inner wisdom, it's there to help you and to guide you. It's up to you whether you'll listen to that, to your soul guidance, or you're going to listen to the programming that you have helped program with your actions, with your patterns of behavior, and with your habits. To stay true to yourself. If you're a good person who is an empath, for example, someone that you need to understand what your gift is to this world, and a lot of how we can address what's happening in the world and with ourselves is you know yourself better than anybody. You know yourself how much you can actually take in before it actually starts to affect you. Now, for example, I have a lot of people that have asked me this question: how do I do this with everything that's happening in the world? You have a choice in how much you are engaging with social media and how much you're engaging with the news, which we know they will make it bigger than it actually is to get ratings. So we know that that's how that life works in a lot of this. If you get pulled in to this, there are things that you need to always remember. Number one, stay authentic to yourself. In my case, I have 3 values I live by: faith, integrity, and authenticity. And when these outside forces are violating any of these values, I tune them out, because then I can't be the best version of me if I'm being swallowed whole by all these negative forces, right? So what I do is I'm very intentional of what I allow into my sphere of influence, because it all influences you. All of this will influence you. And I strive to use my gifts on a daily basis to honor God, to honor myself, to honor humanity on a daily basis. That what I put out there, it's for the good of humanity, not for my good, not for anybody else, but for the good of humanity. Because these gifts that I was given, they're not mine to keep. They're mine to give away and to bless others with it. So how to navigate that? Watch how much of it you allow to penetrate and influence you. Know yourself very well. And for that, have fun with this chapter. Get to know yourself again. If you've journeyed through a really tough time in your life and career, and you're really left with, I don't know who I am right now, take it baby steps. Like, take it one day at a time and get to know yourself again. Ask yourself, what are my top 3 values? How do I want to live my life? Who do I want to allow to influence me? What is going to matter? Because at the end of the day, if you're no good to anyone, if your energy is totally depleted because of all the things that are happening, if you didn't shine your spiritual gifts, if you didn't bring light to this world, if you didn't live out your purpose, your why on a daily basis, all of those things matter. Because as we all start to begin to do these things, the more we move into a space of love, the more love becomes the motivator, if you will. Love is the only thing that can take out fear, that can wipe it clean. You can't do that with more fear. It's love, fear. You will journey through storms. Life is not going to be easy, but there are pockets of joy along your journey. Take full advantage of them. Don't forget to live your life to the fullest every single day, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. And more importantly, know who you are. Form a relationship with your higher source of power. Be who you were created to be on purpose.
So that's it for today's episode of Release Doubt, Reveal Purpose. Head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week who posts a review on iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 private VIP day with Sylvia Worsham herself. Be sure to head on over to releasedoubtrevealpurposepodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Sylvia's gift and join us on the next episode.